Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are super excited to be here today with Stacy Smedley to deliver this training about the Ec3 tool and the transparency catalog and give you some background about the work we've been doing together, as well as carrying both of our respective tools and platforms forward to serve the needs of our various constituencies of architects, engineers, contractors, owners, manufacturers, LCA providers, program operators, and all of the people in the ecosystem for creating the data, the content, the tools that we're bringing to you now. Just so that you know, this is a very popular webinar from a registration perspective, so we've added another session for next Thursday at this time, which we'll let people know about again, so that you know you will get the link to the recording of this webinar sometime in the next 24 hours. You can request the deck if you like. You can register again. We want to make this content available to you. This is going to be the agenda for today, and I'm going to quickly kick off the introduction to Sustainable Minds for those of you who are not familiar with us, and talk a little bit about, or show you a little bit about how the Sustainable Minds and Ec3 Tool Partnership has manifested itself. And then we're going to go right to Stacy, where she will start to demo the Ec3 tool to show how it's designed to be used to select lower embodied carbon products for projects. She's going to share some success stories with you from early users. There's some really great sound bites in there about responses from manufacturers when they've been asked for lower embodied carbon products. She'll give you a little overview of the account types, because if you haven't registered for an account yet, we're all hoping you will subsequent to this webinar. So she'll cover those account types, and we'll also talk about the current material categories that are in the tool, what's coming, and how those categories are getting prioritized and developed. Then we're going to talk about kind of the geeky, really geeky part of the talk today is digging into the Ec3 tool methodology and how it's using data from environmental product declarations to create that underlying data to be able to compare the embodied carbon impacts of products from various facilities. We're going to start out by actually talking about the challenges that exist today with the way product category rules get created, which are the rules for which set the precedent for how environmental product declarations get created, which will give you some appreciation for how amazing the Ec3 tool methodology is to just use what's available today and really apply pressure to the industry to make it better. And she's going to talk about why product and plant-specific EPDs are mission critical for the Ec3 tool, but also for actually reducing the embodied carbon in products. And then I'm going to talk about how the industry is starting to pay attention and work on these problems, and give you just a little bit more insight into what those problems are. Then we're going to segue into a transparency catalog demo. I'm going to show you how the catalog works. I'll show you the listing types we have, which are relevant to the manufacturers, because the catalog is always free to use. There's not even any login. There's no ads. We never sell data. Manufacturers have their choice of how they want to participate to make it possible for their products to be found. We'll give you a tour of the functionality, and we'll have already shown you how to compare the Ec3 results, both in the Ec3 tool and between manufacturers in the catalog. And I'm going to give you a quick look at Sustainable Minds EPDs, we call them transparency reports, and how we've been working to deliver data in the cloud, make environmental performance information more understandable and meaningful, and now how we are also adding the EPD data into the EC3 tool as part of the ecosystem that Stacy will touch on. And then we'll move into, we have a bunch of FAQs that I've encountered a lot when I speak to manufacturers. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. We will strive to have 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. And Stacy's going to be fielding those questions. So she'll scan the questions that have come in, and we'll reply to them as we can. And this time, any question that gets asked, we will capture in the webinar documentation, and we'll follow up to get you those answers. So feel free to submit them today. And there is a quick survey on the way out that just, we ask you if you can take a minute to give us some feedback about these tools and the webinar. That would be much appreciated. So with that, I think most of the people who are arriving are going to have arrived. So we're good to go, Stacy. All right, to set the context here, I think no one would disagree that using EPDs to make decisions about products based on their environmental performance isn't simple. And really, there's two major sets of stakeholders in this ecosystem. We've got the architects, engineers, contractors, and owners who not only want, but we're going to go so far as to say need to design and build lower embodied carbon buildings. And then we've got all the manufacturers who also want, and they are going to need to make lower embodied carbon products. They want to be able to compete on this metric, just like any other performance metric. And at the end of the day, they need and want to get these lower embodied carbon products for which they are producing EPDs to be able to get into your spec, your project spec, and to make sure they actually get into the project. You know, their measure of success for being transparent and creating EPDs is, are they actually winning more business? And I'm going to show you how we've built some tools into the catalog so that you can help them get more information about their relative success for providing those disclosures. So today's demos are designed to address meeting the goals of these two types of users. A little bit about Sustainable Minds. Again, for those of you who don't know us, I'm Terry Swack, the CEO and founder. I started the company in 2007. We've been in the business of building tools to make life cycle assessment and environmental performance more understandable and meaningful and useful to non-LCA professionals. So the Transparency Catalog and our suite of transparency products is the second part of our portfolio, focused specifically on the building and construction industry. And as we developed these solutions starting as far back as 2012, we've become the only end-to-end product transparency solutions provider where we're a program operator. We do PCR and EPD development. We deliver technical services, because you kind of have to have that technical knowledge to be able to ultimately build tools that make the technical information easier to access, more understandable, and ultimately more meaningful, both for the people using the data and for the people creating that data. So in the EC3 Tool Partnership, when we met, I literally met Stacy in May of last year at the ILFI conference, and found a kindred spirit who also had passion in her belly to make this information more actionable, so useful and actionable. And so coming together, we already had collated all of the EPDs across master format divisions, organized by master format division section in North America, which we provided at the outset of our relationship. And since June of last year, we've been working closely to really, again, simplify the story, figure out how to share EPD content back and forth, and provide that information back into the transparency catalog for the use case of when someone's looking to select and specify lower embodied carbon products, depending on where they are in the design process. That's a task they can get done in the transparency catalog, and you'll see we send users directly into the Ec3 tool to start modeling, and conversely, and this is how it's, again, manifested itself, there's a lot of integration back and forth between the manufacturer's listing to the EPD page in the tool, and back out from the EPD page in the tool to the listing, to literally connect the last mile to make it possible for users to find contact information for that manufacturer, more product information, the ability to share content, and we'll show you more about that. But I'm going to turn things over to Stacy now to get her going on the demo, and I am going to make you the presenter.
Okay, great.
And give me 1 second to find your name because the list is super long. There you are. And go ahead.
Okay, well, first, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to do the typical caveat in these times that I have a 8-year-old son in another room and a pug sitting in the living room with me. So if you hear strange noises, it's either the pug snorting or my son asking for something. I'm going to start just really with a tutorial on how to register, just in case there's folks on the phone that don't know how to get into the tool first and foremost. The Ec3 tool is currently housed at buildingtransparency.org. It's a new nonprofit that's been established to continue the management and scale of the tool with leadership from those that were part of the initial grant project for the University of Washington, many of the lead sponsors, etc. So if you go to buildingtransparency.org, you'll be able to sign into the Ec3 tool or register for free. It's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what it wants you to enter, just an email address, and that will get you a registration link to start your free login. Once you're logged into the tool, you're going to see a screen like this. This is really just the landing page, and the first thing it's going to show you is how many environmental product declarations we have in the tool. So for the public version, this is what you see. It's the publicly available version of the tool. It's got 9 material categories in it. And you're seeing here, the number of actual product or manufacturer specific EPDs we have in the blue, and then industry average EPDs in the purple. And this is really to help everyone understand kind of in real time how many EPDs we have in our database, as well as start to direct folks to categories that may need some help in terms of either creating EPDs in general or getting more product-specific EPDs. And this updates in real time every day, so you can kind of get a real look at what the database includes. The next thing I think I'll talk about, Terry, and just reversing the order a little bit, is the user types. So when you log in, you'll see here, I'm logged in as Ordinary Stacy, which is my public account, and I'm a professional user. If you click on this, it will start to show you what each tier of user is and what you get access to. Everyone by default is a private user due to GDPR privacy regulations, based on the fact that in order to become a professional user, we need to know who you work for, and that's just basically something you can fill in and click a box on your registration page, which I'll show you. And this is just showing you what it means for each tier, what you get access to. So most of you will be professional users. Those are our public users once you've indicated your company profile. And that's going to give you access to all of the materials in the public database, all of the buildings that have been made public in the project planner, ability to create buildings for yourself, access to our community forum, sharing projects, managing user groups, etc. The next page, which is the pilot user tier, is really for folks that are part of the companies that have become pilot partners, and that includes a sponsorship of the Ec3 tool for building transparency now. That's helping us to continue to manage and administer the tool and build out new features. So pilot users, if they're part of a pilot company, also get access to things like other material categories that we are including when it comes to EPDs, but have not had the methodology defined and assessed like the public ones have, where it's been through a process of peer review and working groups, etc. So this is a more robust database of materials, which I'll show you, access to features that we're testing to give feedback and ability for us to do what we did in the first place, which is iterate with users to make sure the tool is functioning the way that users need it to. Enterprise features for companies, and then biweekly calls with us. So this is really this pilot tier where you're funding and partnering with us at a pretty deep level. And curators are for folks that are at the level where they are either on our team checking EPDs for their ensuring that we have inserted the data correctly from our PDF sanitizer, as well as changing data if there's something wrong when we've got program operators that are or manufacturers that are saying that there's something that has not translated correctly. So that's really a curator level. So I just wanted to go through that so everyone understands what they are and how that works. If you go into your profile, you're going to see it's got all this set up, and I've got my organization name set as Building Transparency here. So that's really how that works. Now just getting into the actual demo of the Find and Compare Materials function, the first thing you're going to do over here is see the different features of the tool. For Find and Compare Materials, you just want to open up that, that category so that you can see the materials that we currently have available, and then dig deeper into these categories, and they've got the little triangle by them. So I'll start with concrete and just search for ready mix concrete. You can see it shows you the options over here, as well as along the top of your search box. It gives you the master format section that's associated with that material that you're searching for. And then for every material, it's going to give you these design intents categories that are explicitly curated for that material type. So of course, for concrete, it's things like compressive strength or slump. And we've put everything that we would like to search for in here. Quite honestly, many things that are available might not be things that EPDs currently allow us to sort by, but these are things that users have asked for as options that we are being optimistic we can push the PCRs and push the EPDs to include over time. For right now, I'm just going to start with a compressive strength. You'll notice that I can use, when you start typing, it will tell you different functions you can use. The tool does all of the different translations of units for you. So if you want to type it in PSI, you can. I'm going to set a geographic location so you can search and sort by where you are. I'm going to go ahead and put in Washington State because that's where I am. And then I'm just going to scroll down, and it will show me that I could also do other things if I'm getting more into detailed searches. But there's these blue search chips at the bottom that are telling you exactly what you've currently put in for your search parameters. Then I'm going to click search. What this is going to do is populate your search feature with what exactly you searched for. I'm going to scroll down first just to kind of ground everyone that what it's doing is showing you how many samples are returned for your search criteria. So there are 235 EPDs that are product specific that meet my requirements. It's going to give you some kilograms of CO2 math based on aggregating all of those numbers from all of those EPDs. And it's going to tell you the declared unit that it's using. If you're interested in the industry EPDs, you can also click that. We return all the industry results also if you need those for reference. And of course, you can download those also directly from this feature. The other thing that it's going to do up here is create the Boxplot diagram for you. This is something that will be part of every material search that you do. And what it is doing is telling you per kilogram of CO2 per cubic yard, how all of those EPDs performed. So what it's saying is that there was one environmental product declaration result that was at 689 kilograms of CO2 per cubic yard as our max. There was one all the way down at 144 kilograms of CO2 for our min. And then of course, the rest of them fell within this range. For every search that you do, it's going to give you this green rectangle. This is really where 60% of all the data lies, which means that there's 20% of the data that's above this conservative 405 mark, and 20% of the data that's below is achievable, 295. Really what that's saying is that there could be issues with the EPDs or something that's kind of wonky, maybe, who knows, with the ones that are up here. Same with down here, there could be unique instances where they've done something really progressive with cement replacement. We're really wanting to aim our focus on this really achievable 60% range, where you can say there's, you know, achievably, there's still 20% of the market of my returned search that's below this achievable number. So it's just a way to kind of frame a starting high point and a target You'll also see the CLF baseline appear as a line. This is based on CLF methodology, where we've gone through with the University of Washington Carbon Leadership Forum for material category and looked at the data that's being returned with product-specific EPDs, as well as other databases like the ICE database, to set a high conservative baseline for material category. And you can find the actual documentation for this on the University of Washington Carbon Leadership Forum's website that goes into exactly how we've set these baselines for material category with their assistance. And really what that's trying to do is to set a baseline that's high enough to incentivize disclosure, and also a line in the sand when it comes to actually reduction targets being tied to something that is static. Obviously, this conservative and achievable will move as more EPDs are added or things change. So this CLF baseline is the only thing that remains static in our search parameters or in our returned results. So if you go down here and you actually look at all the EPDs, you'll see a few things. The first one is that you've got these compare buttons. And what this is going to do is allow you to take the data and compare by manufacturer, by plant even, if you want to go into that level of granularity with the manufacturer, and then actually look at the a box plot or a kind of box dot diagram of the compressive strengths and where they fall out. So first we'll start with the compare by manufacturer. We'll go in, and what this is going to do is, for those EPDs that were returned for your search parameters, show you the full results when it comes to that kind of conservative achievable number and the high and the low, and then also return to you what each manufacturer has done with their EPDs. So it's just showing you that Cal Portland has EPDs that go up to that high and that low, and 60% of them are in this green range, whereas Stoneway has a much tighter kind of over-under when it comes to minimum maximum, and their EPDs directionally seem to be lower in general when it comes to this PSI strength. The way we've used this information on projects with pilot partners and at Skanska, where I work, is to be able to take this data and be able to set either maximums, where we can say you can't go over a certain kilogram of CO2 per cubic yard for this strength of concrete and these performance requirements, or reduction targets against the CLF baseline, where we can say, okay, if we know that we can get down to 318 with Cal Portland at the 20th percentile, and that's right in the middle of Stoneway's mix profile, then maybe we can aim for an X% reduction that gets us there from the baseline, or even kind of tell them that we're targeting that kilogram of CO2. When we put that into our bid documents as a requirement, along with EPD disclosure for the mix designs that we've included, from a performance standpoint, we are seeing at least a 50 or a 30% reduction against the CLF baseline, targeting getting closer down to 50%, and that's happening at no cost. It's just, quite frankly, by the fact that we are putting the EPD disclosure requirement in the documents, as well as a statement that we are aiming to reduce our embodied carbon by this much. There's nuances of this for every category that makes it different. For concrete, it's really allowing the concrete suppliers to be the ones that are changing the percentage mix requirements. So it means that, you know, in a structural engineering spec, you're not saying you have a max or min cement replacement, you're just saying that you have these performance requirements that you need to meet, and the suppliers are able to change that cement replacement to meet those requirements with lower carbon in mind. Another aspect of this is using type 1L cement, for instance, if that's an option, which it is in Washington, which allows us to get a percent reduction just by making that request. So that's really how that works for concrete. The other things you can do here, of course, this one's just a kind of a cool one to show, where it's just showing you, you know, per compressive strength in megapascals, the kilograms of CO2 and how each of those EPDs is falling along that range for both suppliers. You can see they've listed this over here. This is a new one that we've just rolled out. The other thing you can do from this page directly is if you have an EPD, if I know that this is my mix that I've used, I can click on the details of that EPD. It's going to pull up the selected material with this variability range, which we'll get into in the next section, as well as the overall range. So you can see how that material is falling, that specific EPD is falling against the range. It's going to pull out all the data that we can from that EPD. You know, typically these EPDs are coming from PDFs with concrete reluctant, because we have an integration with the program operator where we're getting it through a digital API. But in any case, you're getting that information here, and then you can also download the direct PDF directly from this. If you go to edit, it's going to open the EPD in a new tab and show you the digital format of that EPD that we've developed. Any EPD in our system has this format in place. This is where you can get a lot more detailed information when it comes to things like when it's expiring, the EPD is expiring, things if you go down where it gives you actually the PCR that's been applied to this, where you can go read that and download it, the plant location, and all the information on who verified the EPD and where the data came from. I'm going to do one more material category just to show you how this applies to other things. So if we go to something like flooring and carpet, you'll see that these design intents changed. I can sort by things like tile or broadloom. I can say that I only want US manufacturers, and I can click search. And again, you're going to see the same information. There's the number of EPDs that meet my search chips, the kilograms of CO2 information right there with the declared unit. Boxplot diagram that's showing you the CLF baseline, which is very high for this because what we're finding is that in many cases, only the guys with the lower embodied carbon products or the manufacturers are disclosing only the lower embodied carbon products through EPDs. So there actually are a lot more carpets with higher embodied carbon that aren't disclosed. And then the range of where those carpets are falling. If I go to that compare manufacturer button again, it's going to pull up that same assessment where you can start to see each of the suppliers and manufacturers of carpet and where their EPDs are falling in terms of what they disclosed. And when you're seeing dots, this just means that we only have we only have a few EPDs, so we're showing those particular EPDs. Once you've got 60 more, it becomes your own range. So this is really good in terms of understanding what manufacturers have disclosed, and again, directionally, who seems to be producing lower embodied carbon options. I will say the other thing that this does is daylight, where you can start using your brain to go into these things, understand why millikins might be higher than interfaces, and it could be because they're plusher carpet tiles. There's something different in terms of the performance of those things. So you do have to do a little bit of brain work to use this data past this point. There's my pug barking. Same thing when it comes to reading the EPD. You're going to see here, you're seeing that EPD versus the range, and you're able to click off the edit button for that EPD and get the same information. Sorry, everybody. That's what it's like to have everyone at the same time to assess the data. So that's really the overview of the Find and Compare Materials feature. I think in terms of success stories about manufacturers, being incentivized, just being able to show this data within these categories has helped us make the case to manufacturers on projects that if they don't have an EPD, they should. An example would be for precast concrete, where there are no supplier-specific precast concrete EPDs right now. We've actually successfully gotten our precast supplier on a job to buy into the process, and they're currently creating those EPDs because they see the business case of being the first to have them, and also that they know once they do, they're available to anyone, and the information will be in the tool. Terry, is there anything that I've missed?
Do you want to show a building project?
Sure, I can do that. I can show how that rolls up into a building. So if we look at my building categories, the way this works is you're taking that data where it's the quantity of material times those searches that you're doing for a project. So there's all sort of projects in here. Let me just type in demo. I'll open one of the demo projects. I don't think it really matters which one. But if you go into the project, what it's going to show you is that you're taking the data, you're able to put in the name of your project, the use, the start date, and location, and then begin to import material quantities. This can be done through BIM 360 import, a tally import, or directly by hand, where you just type in the name of your material and put in the quantities by hand. But once you do that, you can click on the search budget button right from the project and do your search, set the parameters, search by distance from project site if you want, and then use that collection to start to give you that high and low number for your project in terms of potential reduction. Once you've done this for all the different products, you can actually click this little Dwp Summary button, and it's going to show you, for each material category, first the scale of impact. So here's structural steels, potential impact from an embodied carbon perspective versus the decking versus the engineered timber and the concretes. And then this white area is the available reduction. So it's the top of the white is the CLF baseline times your material quantities for these things. The achievable is the 20th percentile. So it's really showing you that potential reduction based on current supply chain data that you could select today. that rolls up to superstructure, shell, and then the overall building. And this is really how we're informing on the owner side in terms of setting reduction targets and building reduction targets into specs and procurement language. Okay, Terry, anything else I should share in this section, or do you want to move on to the methodology?
I think we can move on to the methodology.
Okay, I will, I think you could take back over the control.
I believe I can do that myself.
I just stopped showing my screen, so I think we're good.
All right. I'm going to kind of never had a list quite this long to pick from. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Ec3 methodology in a little bit more detail. Stacy did a nice job of giving you some insight into it. You're probably feeling at this point you're getting a little bit fire hosed, so that's why we're going to go a little bit deeper and kind of cover some of the things that were already shown, but it can't hurt to show it again. So I'm going to start just at the big level. Product category rules. And a couple of years ago, Sustainable Minds, because there was no place that people could find all the product category rules that have been created anywhere, we just decided to track everything in North America and to organize it for the building construction industry. So we created the North American PCR catalog. You can access it in the global navigation from the Transparency catalog. It's a Google Doc, and we maintain it. It links to all the PCRs. We've organized them by master format division, even though PCRs mostly don't have master format division and section designation within them. So we organize them that way. And we also track the validity dates. And now that we've been doing this for some number of years, PCRs are valid typically for up to 5 years. Which is a pretty long time to have a set of rules that don't change. But at the same time, when you think about how much time it takes to produce an LCA and ultimately an EPD, that's a reasonable amount of time. But in this last 5 years, PCR development has gone from really being a very labor-intensive and very expensive process for manufacturers to pay for, to some program operators like Sustainable Minds and a few others have already started to make it simpler, streamline the technical program, provide a two-part process that makes it much simpler for manufacturers to participate. But what you can still see and what this table shows is that we track all the EPDs that are getting created in North America, and we track which ones are created to which PCRs. We also track the number of manufacturers in each master format division, because that's important. So you can see which divisions have the most activity. But what I'm pointing out here is that there are more PCRs expiring than there are new ones getting created. And again, just this year, there will be 12 that are expiring. And what's happening is that expiring PCRs are getting renewed until such a time interested manufacturers can get it together to create a new one. So the metrics for measurement that are older are still hanging around. So there are a bunch of things that are not working today for how environmental performance data really needs to be created to be utilized to make decisions and to be utilized in tools that are helping you make decisions. So, we've broken it down into these categories. Program operators are still doing PCRs and creating EPDs the way they want to. They're unique. Product category rules are, again, different from each program operator. Even EPDs made from the same PCR are quite different. through the design and the delivery. Today EPDs are delivered as PDFs that are very difficult to extract data from. There's one great technical partner that the EC3 tool works with, which is Climate Earth, that's done a great job of generating digital EPDs for concrete. So we're going to see more happening in the industry. But for the manufacturers on the call, I know you'll appreciate this, that it's just too expensive. And now with the EC3 tool, prioritizing and giving the most credence to plant-specific and product-specific EPDs, which Stacey's going to talk about in a minute as to why, the number of EPDs that manufacturers need to be creating just got exponentially larger on top of what seems to be an insurmountable task practically today. So one of the things that we've been doing at Sustainable Minds since we became a program operator back in 2013 is we introduced our EPD, which we call a transparency report, because ISO 14025 says program operators can call their Type 3 environmental declarations anything they want. EPD is a colloquialism. It's not even the technical term. So we called ours a transparency report to indicate there's something different. We integrate product transparency with product marketing, because why should this technical data be separate and apart from the other information people use to make decisions? And even more importantly, why should it be separate and apart from the other kinds of sales tools that manufacturers, A&D reps use to provide content to AECs to make decisions? And now that environmental performance is one of those attributes, shouldn't everything be all in one place so that people can make informed decisions with everything right in front of them? So our transparency reports are delivered in the cloud. We also have downloadable PDFs, and we also now deliver them directly into the EC3 tool. You can see these are some examples. It's a standard template so that everything is always in the same place on every transparency report. It's all standardized, easy to use. Actually, all the performance attributes are right here. It links back into the manufacturer's website. You can download the specs. You can download every single certificate and disclosure the manufacturer has for this product family. And what we're doing now is and you can see it's just 3 pages with interpretation and information to explain what the results mean and what the manufacturer is doing to improve. And now what we're doing is, rather than requiring a manufacturer to create explicit EPDs for each plant and each product, this becomes essentially a little microsite where users can get access to just the data and the information at the plant level. And this is what we are delivering into the EC3 tool. So the manufacturer can have one EPD or transparency report for product family or a product line, but yet the data for each plant is created, delivered, and added to the EC3 tool. You guys who are going to get this deck, I included this link. Back in November when the EC3 tool launched, we wrote essentially a review of the tool and talked about how we felt bold the EC3 tool methodology is to do the best that it can with an imperfect system of data to be able to bring a great tool to market. And now the challenge as program operators and LCA providers and those of us in that aspect of the ecosystem is to improve those tools. So Stacey, you want to talk a little bit about the methodology? We can kind of breeze through this and I'll get to the transparency catalog demo.
Sure. Yeah. So like I mentioned before, the way that the tool works is really when you're building a project, it wants you to have material quantities from an estimate, a BIM model, or a tally LCA model. And it's multiplying that by the kilograms of CO2 that we're pulling from the environmental product declarations to get to a building embodied carbon estimate. That's really the plan and compare buildings function. And to do that, we need the data for both the material quantities and the embodied carbon. And I will talk more about the embodied carbon data if you go to the next slide, Terry, in this webinar. So what we did per material category that's public is work with the University of Washington Carbon Leadership Forum over the past year to create a methodology on how we can actually assess EPD data to make it more comparable. It's actually an ISO requirement that you assess EPDs for uncertainty if you're going to compare them in any way. And then material reports per material included to go into the details of what the unique nuances are per material category when it comes to either alignment or lack of alignment. And again, when we're taking that data and compiling it, we are putting it into this default 80th and target 20th percentile to really create a place to start from a high conservative estimate down to an achievable target based on the data itself.
And I think the point that I would just reinforce about how awesome the Sankey diagram is in a glance, a user can prioritize which materials in the project it's going to make sense to reduce the embodied carbon impacts. So, right there, shell, sub, and substructure are the obvious suspects for you to go back in and continue to work on your project.
Correct. Yeah, just trying to make it as simple as possible to focus on certain areas and make actionable reductions. And this is really just the working document when we started to look at this in terms of how the Carbon Leadership Forum was thinking about the methodology and the uncertainty and the metrics. And again, setting that kind of limit or baseline that's high and conservative based on available product-specific data and also industry average data that's out there in the marketplace through databases like ICE and industry average EPDs to incentivize more disclosure and set a line in the sand that was a high conservative line. And then the uncertainty that you saw, I call it in my Stacy non-technical term, the blue squishy stuff on the product side is the uncertainty that we've assessed against the declared number. So the declared kilogram of CO2 number, the global warming potential is that black line. What we're saying is that we have this much assurance that that number is correct. There's this much squishiness in the number based on how specific the data is and how far back the data goes when it comes to plant-specific data, et cetera. And in the tool, we default to the conservative, so that's taking the burden of the doubt approach. When you're looking at what we're actually doing in the methodology, it is on that EPD digital page that I showed you, where you can actually understand what we're setting as a standard deviation and how that applies to whether that EPD is manufacturer, plant, or product specific. And if you go to the material category reports that I mentioned on the Carbon Leadership Forum website, it digs into all of that per material category so you can understand what that looks like and means. And I'm not going to really go into this one. This is just showing that there is actual math that's behind all of these things that we do to get to an actual percentage of variability.
Yeah, and the point to end this portion of the methodology description is to show folks that there are really these 5 factors that are the levers in the way the methodology utilizes the embodied carbon data, so A1 through A3, to essentially rank the quality of the data in the creation of that representative range and ultimately the CLF benchmark. So looks at these 5 factors. Is it manufacturer specific, facility specific, product specific? Currently, these last 2 parameters aren't being utilized yet. They'll be coming, so we'll talk more about that later. But what we did was at Sustainable Minds is we worked with the methodology folks, Kate and Stacy and Phil, to just make it simple. Because now you guys have sat through a webinar where we've explained a lot of technical information about how this information is derived and what it means. But at the end of the day, if somebody really wants to use embodied carbon as a data point to identify a lower embodied carbon product, if that's part of the decision-making process or a parameter for consideration, somebody just wants to know the answer. Just show me the answer make it quick, and help me understand. And so we spent actually a couple months creating this tooltip, which I'll show you in live, which is more like a little white paper in a tooltip that explains the whole methodology in this one little space, explains what it is, explains this burden of the doubt methodology, which simply explained means burden of the doubt is the opposite of benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt means you get the best outcome without presenting proof. Burden of the doubt is the opposite, which says you're going to get the worst outcome unless you provide the actual proof. And so what we created was these percentile results, taking the comparative result from the EC3 tool. So as Stacy pointed out, this is the actual number that's disclosed. This is the squishy stuff, the uncertainty. So the more uncertain the data is, meaning the less specific it is, the more uncertainty penalty gets added. And the comparison happens at the highest level of uncertainty to this industry range, which, by the way, is also calculated including all of the uncertainty. And the result is here, which we've helped to define. So the best is the lowest, right? Lowest is the best. And highest is where the EC3 tool is hoping you will specify products lower than the 80th percentile, which is why it's not average and why it doesn't go to 100%. So now as we transition into the user experience of the transparency catalog, when you get into the listing in the tool, now in a glance, a user can see the percentile result of that product. You'll see, you can click right into the EC3 tool, but you can see where it falls in that range in a glance. In the same way, you can see what kind of declare label they have. So it's real simple. And this methodology, this tooltip, comes up when you mouse over that. So anybody who's unfamiliar or wants a reminder, that's all right there. And now when a user goes into the catalog and filters by master format and sees all the manufacturers who have products with EPDs in that master format division and section, again, in a glance, the user will be able to see the relative environmental embodied carbon result of that product, along with all the other stuff they want to be able to use to make informed comparative decisions. So that was the segue from the detailed, granular methodology data to how we've just presented it in a very simple way in the catalog. So quickly about the catalog, again, some of you not familiar, it includes every single building product manufacturer in North America who has created either EPDs or any kind of material ingredient disclosure. We include all of the technical programs that have been identified by the green building rating systems as offering disclosures that are eligible to earn credits. Again, we include the EPDs from every program operator in North America. And the good news is there's now manufacturers who have EPDs in 19 of the most commonly used master format divisions. And in the catalog today, we've got manufacturers and products with one or both kinds of transparency disclosures in 32 master format divisions and over 750 master format sections. So it is possible today to actually design and build a building where practically all of the products that you're going to want to select and specify have transparency information. And so when we launched the transparency catalog in 2016, it was always designed to be a specification tool. And we've just been taking the long, playing the long game, waiting for the industry to evolve over the years to produce enough products where manufacturers invested in product transparency to make it radically simple to find products in the selection specification process by master format to include in your product selection and specification, so that you can reward those manufacturers for investing in transparency and also providing tools to let them know. So I'm going to jump into the demo now. There's more than, for manufacturers, there's more than just that listing page in the transparency catalog. There's training, there's a webinar series, there's support. And so really, for manufacturers, it's an educational marketing and sales enablement tool. For AECs, it's a resource to easily find products to select and specify. And again, there's no login. It's free to use. There's no ads. So it's really easy to get in and out. And one of the biggest problems that we solve with the design of the listing, again, is that people aren't specifying disclosures. They specify products with disclosures. And for those of you familiar, which probably most of you are, you know then that most disclosures cover more than one product. And it's not really easy to figure out which products go with which disclosures. And so the design of the listing is designed to do exactly that. So I'm going to jump to this demo. Here it's live. You can see today there's almost 1,400 brands. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump right to that USG listing that I had in that slide. And you can see here's the product table. It's a matrix, so the organization is the horizontal is the master format division and section name, and then we append the manufacturer's brand name so that you know what that manufacturer calls their products in that division or section. The vertical axis is which types of transparency disclosures do they have, environmental performance or material health, and any kind of user, a manufacturer's rep, or you can go into each of those sections and look at the products that they have. You can actually open all the sections all at the same time. So in a glance, you can see every product the manufacturer has and what types of disclosures. This link goes to the product page on the manufacturer's website. So we don't believe that manufacturers should have to manage a lot of content about their products someplace else, this kind of being the single source of truth. You can get the EPD right there and download it. You can get the declare label right there, the same thing for the HPD, it's all right there. And now you can see that this particular EcoSmart sheetrock panel is in the 20th percentile. If I'm not sure what that means, I can read the tooltip. Now I can go directly into the EC3 tool, and I'm arriving at that EPD page that Stacy demoed. And there you can see the actual comparison. So even with the fuzzy stuff, this product is well below the industry range that's been derived, and certainly well below the conservative CLF benchmark. And you can also see that if I had come in through the EC3 tool and ultimately drilled down to the EPD page, connecting that last mile, the user can get to the manufacturer's transparency catalog listing, find all the products, get access to the spec, which we've now added right there into the section bar. And also there's a whole array of social media and sharing tools. And the last link I'm going to show you here is, this is the link where on every listing, it's going to give you an email pop-up to contact the person responsible for product transparency at every one of those manufacturers for you to be able to ask more questions, but more importantly, let them know when you select or specify their products with transparency information so that they know their investments are paying off. I'm going to jump back in here. Stacy, for next week, we know where we need to streamline things. We're at the FAQs, and maybe what we want to do is look at the questions that have come in, Stacy, and see if there's...
Yes, so Terry, I've been answering all of them as you've been talking.
Oh, perfect. All right, great. Then let's just do the FAQs.
Yeah.
So how are the products grouped in EC3? Is it by master format section or is it something else?
So currently the find and compare materials bar on the left is not by master format when you're just using that search bar over there, because we got feedback from users that they wanted it to be more intuitive, or we're just listing the material categories and then breaking them down. But the tool automatically assigns a master format section to each material category and product. So once you go into the search, it's going to show you the master format section. And when you're in the project planner, you can actually have your Sankey diagram sort by master format automatically.
Right, and in fact, that reminded me, this is the part of the demo that I showed in a slide, but not here. So every manufacturer and their products have been tagged with master format section division. So from the front page, a user can select the division and section they're interested in. I didn't pick a section from the front page because I just wanted to show you when you come here, you're going to be able to see all of the manufacturers and all of the products in Division 9. So it's a lot of brands, it's a lot of products. You're probably not going to want to page through. And so now you can use these filters in any order depending upon how you want to look for products. So you might say, look, I'm starting my spec for Division 9. I can start by looking at these sections, but let's just say I'm going for a lead project, and just show me every product in Division 9 that has an EPD, and I can filter that way right now, and it brings it down to 99 brands, 1,700 products. That's still probably too many. If I wanted to, I could also say, you know what, let's go for broke here, show me all the ones that also have a material ingredient disclosure, so that now I'm only picking from the brands that have both, and you can see Armstrong comes right up at the top. The user can also just go into a particular section. Now that I've filtered down, I'm going to turn those off. The user can go into a particular section and start there. And the way the sections are designed are so that a user is going to be able to find brands or products they might not have known about in that particular section. Actually, can't keep up with how fast I'm clicking. Or you can click the Select Brands box, and it will show you every single brand in that section that meets the parameters that you've selected. And the way we've designed the filtering is we want people to find brands they might not have known about and solutions to the same problem that they might not have known is available. So you're going to turn off what you don't want to see while you're filtering. And as you browse, you might say, oh, you know what? I don't want specialty flooring right now, but I'm going to come back to that. But I am interested in wood flooring. And the way we add products to the filter so that you never get no results when you select a filter is that the master format section gets populated based on the way the manufacturer identifies that product. That's a whole other webinar to talk about how well people understand master format and those designations, and how master format and HPDs get selected relative to here, relative to the Ec3 tool. So we're working on optimizing. If we go back to the FAQs, maybe there's one more so we can end on time. Let's talk about how manufacturers can ensure their EPDs are in EC3. Why don't you respond to that?
Sure, yeah. So the first is just to simply get a login and go in and search for your products if you know that you have EPDs available. And the hope is that we've done our job and that we've included everything from those 9 public categories, but we know that there are obviously still inefficiencies in how we get EPDs. So we're doing a lot just via manufacturers supplying us PDFs through a box file structure that we have. We are searching ourselves, and we are working with program operators to try to figure out ways to have automatic transfers of EPDs. If you don't see your EPD there, there's two things to do. The first is to email us, and I think, Terry, you have the email address. I actually don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But you can email at Building Transparency directly and send the EPDs to us, and we automatically put them into the box folder and slurp them into the database. You can also...
the other answer to that is we have 99% already of EPDs available in North America, and we provide them to the EC3 tool as well. So if you don't see your EPDs in the EC3 tool, it's possible that they have them but haven't been able to add them yet, simply because of the challenges of interpreting and understanding the data in the EPD. So if you don't see your EPD in the EC3 tool, come to your transparency catalog listing, see if we have your EPD in the catalog. If it's not in the EC3 tool, you can email us too. There's a support link on that page. So there's a bunch of ways you can make sure your EPDs are getting into the tool. And so here's our ask at the end of this webinar. Stacy, you want to do your asks?
Sure. I think mine are, if you haven't gone in and just played with EC3, please go register at buildingtransparency.org and do so. There's a user snap function within the tool that is just a box you click open where you can circle things and ask questions while you're using the tool and send them directly to us. And we're constantly wanting more feedback and more folks to go in and tell us what we could do better or strive to include. And the best way to get familiar with EC3 is just try to start using it. We're here to help, so you can also join the EC3 community from the Building Transparency website to connect to others using the tool, as well as email us if you would like support or demos. And there's also videos on the site to help you. The other thing is, I think, just if you're AECO, architect, engineer, contractor, or owner, please start asking for EPDs and using the data in EC3 to help you select products. And if you are a manufacturer, please start to look at how your data is currently being assessed in EC3 and how it's looking against others. And if you have not created EPDs yet, I just urge you to do so, because this traction has become so fast in the past 18 months that I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to keep on speeding up. We currently have over 5,500 people already registered for EC3 using it for something. So please create and talk to us about how they can get into EC3.
Right, and from our perspective, anyone, again, can use the transparency catalog. We give demos to AEC firms all the time so that you can think about how that would integrate into your workflow. Manufacturers, we really are encouraging you to get your products into the transparency catalog, not just your disclosures. Especially if you have EPDs, we make sure your EPDs get into the EC3 tool. We review that content with you and help you understand what the results mean. If there's not a PCR for your category and you want to get going, talk to us about that as well. And if you're thinking about doing EPDs and there is a PCR, talk to us about that too, because you're going to be excited to create a new kind of EPD that is really a sales and marketing tool and gets your data in all the places that it needs to be. So thank you for coming. Again, you'll be able to get the recording. We'll send that to you. We do have another webinar scheduled for next week, so if you feel like you want to listen again live, you can sign up. And Stacy, thank you for taking time today to put this together with us, and this was fun.
Sure. Hey, Terry, one question for everybody and for myself on the question Q&A, since I did try to go through and answer all of those. Is that something that folks get a copy of if they haven't had a chance to go read through the answers? Or can we somehow make that something available?
We can, yes. Yes, we can actually make an answer page that gets sent out as an attachment to the follow-up email that will get sent with a link to the recording.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Great.
Thanks. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.